Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted to have a conversation with Diana Daniels. Diana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Frits, for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation, but for the audience, let me first give you a little bit of background who you are. Originally from Mexico, you migrated to the US in the 90s. You completed a number of universities, including Stanford, where you actually now are chair of the board in the Stanford Alumni Executive Program Foundation. You started to work in the telco industry, and you are the founder and currently the chair and CEO of the Cronos Group, a multinational telecoms company. And if you haven't had time enough, you're also the founder of TinkerLink, which is a social marketplace, which we'll cover later in the show. And you move between Florida, New York, and Barcelona. So in my book, you are a true global entrepreneur. So
That's
again,
true.
Diana, welcome. We're going to talk about startups, entrepreneurship, role models, time management, motivation, a lot of things. Now, just reading your resume, reading your background, it reminds me of a saying my wife frequently shares: if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you put it into that way, I have to say that it sounds more complicated than it is, and it could be that because I'm either, a woman, we're so used to multitasking that for me it has been easy to do several things at the same time. And probably the key that I believe that it is that we have, and I have in my team, a great support system. And if you have a great support system, that will allow you to do several and many things. Team is a key. You cannot do everything alone. I've learned that already. I might be the face of many of the things that you just said, but behind me, there's always a team. And in the other hand, you do not do more, if you can do by yourself to advance. And I enjoy the pieces of creating. So I'm always trying to look for all these type of projects that allow me to be able to create, to generate impact, and gives me a lot of energy and allows me to grow. So that's where I'm always active.
Busy. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, if I go to your WhatsApp message and I see your status, it actually states busy ! 3 times. So you're a busy person.
I am. Listen, I love this the personal contact with people, but sometimes in WhatsApp or in Signal or Telegram or whatever messaging systems that we have today, people sometimes forget that you still have a job, and this immediate communication, people are always wishing that you answer right away. Wait a second, I'm busy. I'll answer you back whenever I have a chance to answer you back. It's like this instant gratification thing that we have. Okay, answer me now. It's I'm busy. I'm working on something for sure.
Hold on, wait. I'll get back to you in an hour, a day. I recognize that. I think we all recognize that. Now, before you became a busy person, how did you start? When you started off working in the telco industry, a number of managerial jobs, marketing jobs. At a certain point, you said, "Okay, I'm going to start my own company." What triggered that idea?
Well, I guess I've been in the telecom industry for many years, and probably more years than I'm willing to accept. I don't want any people to start making any conflicts. But the truth is that I've been always an agent of change for most of the companies that I work for. And I truly live and breathe on disruption. So one day back in 2012, I decided that it was time to take my shot. I've been working diligently for, as you said, started in marketing jobs and then came to sales, buying, until managing bigger companies and corporate companies, did M&As and all that stuff. So then I decided that it was my time, and I thought that I could do that. And this is what I've been doing for already many years. I created Cronos also with my partner, and it wasn't easy, to tell you the truth, at the very first time, to be a corporate person and then being willing to just jump and do an entrepreneur as an entrepreneur, it's hard job, especially when you come from this environment where things like, I don't know, let's say hiring, in corporate is easy. You have a big department of HR that keeps you with the inflow of candidates that will help you sort them out, make all kind of exams, deliver ones that are easier for you to take away. And today, although nowadays the tools probably will make that flow easier for people without big HR departments, but starting your company, it's or creating another startup, the challenges to get talented people and the right team are harder, not impossible, because as a new
I understand that's difficult in the beginning, but still, did you just wake up at a certain moment and say, hey, no, I'm going to start my company, I'm going to quit my job, or did it grow on you? Because people who watch this podcast are interested in their own journey, look at the role models, how they've done that.
I will say that most of us, that the people that they are always with that little in your back head, right? Yeah. Saying like, I want to do something, or I'm tired of the rigid system that the corporations usually give you, like, and that you can do better. Yeah. Right? Because most of the time it's like, we need to do this. Yeah. And you can either not convince either the CEO, if you're not the CEO, or if you're the CEO, you might not be able to convince the board or your investors that this is the way to make it happen. Or you just decide that you need that freedom somehow to do this. Freedom doesn't equals to less work, right? And the people that are in the entrepreneurship arena understand this. It's like you probably work more than when you were working for somebody, but the benefits of and the sentiment of achievement is so greater. Yes, the risks are so higher too. So so if you have it in your, like, any of your audience that today are listening to, if you have it in your back of your mind, you're thinking about it, don't waste any time. Just try to put your plan together. If you have a revenue stream solid somehow, well, try to maintain it until you start advancing in other things. In my case, the company that I was working for, it came to a moment that I didn't want to continue being with them any longer. Our difference were so big that I couldn't come back to what I was doing before. And it was a moment in my life where I was thinking, okay, do I get another C-level job in another company, which the offers came in, or do I start over and then pursue what I want to do with my assets, with my contacts, and with what I know already about the market, plus the innovation that I want to create.
Because you don't, there are a couple of elements. It's not just having the passion and the urge to be successful. You also have to have some kind of a product or an idea, a service. So what is it you started to offer? You said, hey, that's the niche I'm going to go for.
Well, in the telecom side, the more than the niche was also the way of doing business, the way that you manage your risks, and telco side, especially in the side that we were working on, which was on the wholesale of telco. There's a lot of different risks that we were managing too. So, but that also gave me another opportunity to start pivoting and doing innovation into other aspects. And this is kind of like the reason that we start doing angel investing in several companies as well, and as well of creating of little startups like TinkerLink that we were talking about before. So that gave me that opportunity to really play along and understand what was going on with these new technologies, touch a little bit of that, understanding in that other segments on that it could be similar to telecom, but in parallel routes, to try to see what else I can do, and that it will probably create a different impact as well. The telecom industry has been super novel with me and with my partners, but I wanted to give more. I was working in, as I said, for many years in this industry. I helped manage the two largest calling card companies in the United States, so that that gave me this approach, like to the end user, to the multicultural market, the ethnic markets, the Mexicans, the Central Americans, the South Americans, the Caribbeans, the Africans, everybody that was living in the United States, and that somehow were communicating back to their homes and to their countries. I understood what they needed, what they were looking for, and this was kind of like what we were trying to approach in the innovation side.
It's definitely, you're already alluding to a question I had when we're going to discuss TinkerLink. But what I'm hearing you say is my own personal background is a huge influence on not only what I'm doing with Cronos, because I understand my clients because I'm one of them, but also I see the struggle they're in a day-to-day life, and I want to do something about that.
Definitely. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you understand a market like I do understand the multicultural markets, the ethnic markets in not only the United States, but also in Mexico, Latin America, which is kind of like my turf, Spain, Portugal.
Yeah.
I needed to do something with it. And I started, pivoting into different ideas because we were like in the calling card area. Then we tried to, we launched a soft or a digital calling card as well. But then WhatsApp came after, with all the piece of calling for free. So it's like, okay, this market is disrupted already. So we need to figure out what other avenues we can do.
Okay, and now what you just said about your own background, would that also be an advice or generic advice you'd give to young people starting up their own career, is look at your own background, because that's where you can bring to the table?
Definitely. It's not only your own background, but things that occurs to you. For instance, why did I create TinkerLink? Not only because I wanted to grab or to attack that market of the multicultural ethnic.
Yeah. So when we're going to talk about TinkerLink right now,
okay.
Please, in a couple of words, what is TinkerLink? What does it do?
Well, Tinker is a social marketplace that helps people, to be included into the labor and financial markets. Basically, what it is a social marketplace where you find and connect with trustworthy experts recommended by people that you already know. And our aim is included into the mobile revolution and financial segment, And if I can tell you a little bit why I'm doing that, as you said, so I'm Mexican. I come from a matriarchy family in Mexico, la mama, la donna, la nonna, la abuela, it's like that's my family in Mexico, in at least in Mexico and many other Latin countries. The mom is the key centerpiece of the family framework. So my grandma in specific, she's this particular woman. She will travel every year to different places alone in her late 80s, it was amazing. And she was actually one of the demonstrators for women's rights in Mexico on the 68 for the students, this woman going out there and everything. And what happened was that 5 years ago, she went sick and she had a stroke, and my family is a working family. We all worked like since forever. My mom, her sisters, brothers, uncles, whatever. We're a working family, so we needed a caregiver to help her out because at that time she was unable to speak, to feed herself, to dress herself. This independent woman certainly needs to have this extra care of someone that has to be with her like 7/24. So who do you call? Who do you trust? Who do you give the keys of the house to go and take care of this, this person that you love and adore, and especially in countries like Mexico, where security is an issue. So then I realized that we needed a referral-based platform where we can find that trustworthy expert recommended by the people that you already know, that we already developed and called TinkerLink. And when we did, I realized that the problem actually was bigger, because as anything in life, the story has two faces. For one side, people like you, like me, like my grandma, or like the working parents who needs to take care of their kids, have a nanny or a plumber or somebody to come home, a trustworthy expert, right? But from the other side, you have all these trustworthy experts, the nanny, the driver, the cleaner, the plumber, that many of them are paid in cash and belong to the informal economy. That is a market, of $12 trillion. And probably more now, that's actually because of the pandemic. And if you think about this, it's a very underserved market. By 2019, 48% of the world population were part of the informal economy. And today, by 2021, at least, just the year that just ended, is 61%. So this is an incredible size market that where people that we usually pay in cash, that means that people are out of the financial system. They have no social security. They don't have any pension plans. They don't have access to credit or mortgage or even decent loans, because when I work in telecom, especially in the prepaid calling card system, I realized that the immigrants who were using the cards were the people that actually pay the most expensive telecom services. It happens the same thing with the financial services. So if they have any access to any loans, are like an incredible, crazy amounts of rates. So I realized that there was an opportunity to deliver a solution that can provide not only job opportunity to this type of segment, but also include them into the financial system through the power of the mobile economy and the mobile technology in general terms. So this is the reason that I make it.
Okay, because you did mention it's a huge opportunity. I hear the businesswomen talking about, okay, I see an opportunity here. Does that mean that TinkerLink supports the status quo or maintains the status quo of that situation?
No, ideally, but what we want to make sure, and with the way that we started, we're being walking slow, because in this segment, you need to also win the trust of the people. So what happens is that indeed we allow people to have those interactions and those conversations and those potential business. Then we added a mobile wallet, so people can actually get the mobile wallet and then do transactions. And people are learning. It's a curve into this. We had last year actually great traction, like people really using the wallet. But then we have a big segment also like using it for purposes that they were not supposed to be, So we needed to keep an eye on that, and then not let the abusers of the platform to actually take advantage of it, and then having it available for the people that should have it. So it's a process. We don't want them to continue in that status quo. We want them to be included into the labor market, into the financial system, so they can have access to other things such as credit references, or eventually be part of the economy, social security, so they can pay taxes and so on. So that's what. Okay,
that's a good path for the use of the system. Now, also TinkerLink had itself a great start, because it was one of the 33 startups with Single Lang, the university, with the global startup program. How did that happen?
Well, the Singularity University program for startups has the goal of selecting entrepreneurs that will impact the life of a billion people. So they select projects and startups that have that potential. And I'm super proud that they saw this on TinkerLink, because our aim is to include the informal economy into the labor market. And we're talking about that the informal economy is 2 billion people. So we were like right on that, if whenever we have this possible, and hopefully we can grow to different countries, we have that chance to reach at least that billion people. So that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I hear you talk about Cronos, which you started up, and TinkerLink, how's the balance? Where do you want to spend where are you spending your most time on?
Well, as I said, we are as entrepreneurs and as C-level, even in corporate, you are as much as your team is to you. So I have a fantastic team. My co-founder on Cronos, he's been taking care of mainly most of the day-to-day business. He's the COO, so he does a huge part of the operations. I still obviously I'm part of the organization as well, but in a less active role. So that gives me the opportunity to bring the innovation to the group in general terms, right? While the telecom we have a team, a great team, several guys that are in different parts of the world taking care of and making it, all the deals happen, from the sales to the operations to the engineering to routing to billing and all that stuff. I have a small group that I take part of the organization with me. Like, we're a little SWAT team, and then we'll start doing our innovations pieces.
Okay, I got that. Now, do you compartmentalize entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship? So, like, Cronos is your entrepreneurship angle, TinkerLink your social entrepreneurship. Does it ever get mixed, or do you keep them separately deliberately?
No, listen, there's, as a good entrepreneur, I guess that you do bootstrapping. Yeah. So sometimes I use resources from the telco side and then bring it to TinkerLink. And sometimes the telco side might need an expertise from the TinkerLink, the entrepreneurial guys, and then bring them back home, So we are a very cross-functional team. And everybody likes, when they're working for companies that have a bigger impact, everybody feels proud of it. So I'm very happy that team on the telco, they feel as part of all the projects, because we bring them back to them, and we usually they're our GDPs, I call them, because we test things on them, and they give us feedback as well, or they see us opportunities where can we partner with other companies that are probably doing the same. So I guess we have a very healthy relationship between the two organizations.
Good. Now, I'm not going to ask a number of years, but all those years you've worked in the industry, what are the biggest learnings and the biggest failures to say, hey, this is my bumpy road, and this is what I've learned from?
Wow. Listen, I guess that part of the biggest learnings that or the things where I felt where I probably cost me the most the biggest scars are do not put all eggs in one basket. I guess that is important, diversification in everything. It's not only in your investments, in your life, in the work, in the people, it's in providers, big time providers, your vendors. It is important. It is important because you never know what can happen one day. Another thing that I also learned, and this is probably because you have to think about, I come from a Latin country with a very macho environment. So in many cases, I started working very young. I was working with my elbows, I call it, excuse me, I'm here. So one of the things that I learned eventually is that it's very important to do not burn any bridges. It is very crucial, because once again, in the future, you don't know who is going to be on the other side of the table. And I can tell you that I was a very alpha women, always ready for the punches. But eventually you realize, Fred, oh my gosh, this guy that is there, this girl, so it is important. Don't burn any bridges, because you never know what's going to be on the other side of the table. And probably the last one, is that there's nothing better than smile. It's learn to smile. It doesn't matter how difficult the times are, just smile, because that will create a similar feedback to you.
Couple of questions on that last topic. Are you ever off balance?
Listen, as I said, right, I guess I'm very good in multitasking. One of the things that I'm always fighting to is to do not procrastinate, and I've learned how to manage this balance, and this is something that is pure practice. Okay. You know, if you will ask me this maybe 20 years ago, you will notice that I was not necessarily in balance. Okay, right? So because I was doing too much work, maybe little personal, and right now I'm trying to maintain this balance by saying, okay, I'm not taking more of my personal life into the work life, regardless it's my own company, right? So this, and I want also my team to have a personal life, you know. We are encouraging right now a lot of like remote working. Most of our guys, they want to work from different parts of the world. They want to explore the world. Like, okay, you know, just make sure that you deliver your stuff whenever you can. Try to take your time, do whatever you need to do. Just let's commit to each other that we're going to be in whenever we need to be in. Yeah.
Sounds like a good advice to share with people. Now, I'm assuming that one of the role models in your life was your grandmother you just described.
Yeah.
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 To what extent are you yourself a role model, and for who?
Well, that's a hard question, Frits, because I guess that being a role model, more than a role model, I want to be an inspiration. You know, I want to be somebody that can provide or that can inspire, you know, other people. I'm always mesmerized about, you know, these female warriors in history that in our lives has, you know, break the status quo and redefine it, you know. So I would love, you know, for other female, especially middle-aged women, you know, to realize that yes, you are not too old to start a new business. You are not too old to quit your corporate job and do something different and great. I would like to be an inspiration for not only these middle-aged women, but also for other women, regardless of the age, girls, older, whatever, you know. And hopefully they see me as someone that sends the elevator back down, you know, that wants to include more people into whatever we are doing, because we all are capable to do great things.
Okay, Diana, final question. I mean, time moved so fast talking to you, but how do you want people to remember you?
Well, you know what? I truly want people to remember me like someone that is able to give back, you know, someone that is able to share knowledge, somebody that is an agent of inclusion. I want to be remembered like that I was able to make you part of whatever circle you think that you didn't belong to.
Well, you're walking the talk. You've demonstrated also with TinkerLink that you're providing that to the world. So, Diana, we've run out of time, which I'm very sorry about, because I loved talking to you. And so I want to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your insights, and for the brand called You. Thank you so much.
Thank you for it. It has been super fun. I really liked it, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.